broadcasting. Well, I'll wait for that.
Yeah, right.
Wait for the applause. We're broadcasting this week from the Mill Coffee and Tea in downtown Lincoln. Portions of today's show are pre-recorded.
I'm Genevieve Randall.
I'm the retiring or retired Dave Hughes. We still seem to be working.
Yeah, that's true. We have got Dave to co-host here today. This is his last Friday Live as he has chosen to retire. By the way, congrats to you, Dave.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll tag team some questions today with our live guests about Capital Jazz Society hosting an ensemble from Omaha and a museum in Omaha hosting a symphony performance.
It's like getting the veil taken off or the blindfold, and you suddenly see a brand new dimension of 4D element to this concert you didn't anticipate.
Plus, Greg Kosmiski has poetry for us this week. Listening to Friday Live on Nebraska Public Media. Support for programming comes from the Ross. Now playing is Secret Agent. A technology expert is caught up in the vibrant and violent Brazil of 1977. With help from the underground resistance, he hopes to escape with his son. And Nouvelle Vague, director Richard Linklater's love letter to the magic of French cinema in this reimagining of Godard's revolutionary film Breathless. theross.org. Well, we start here this week on Friday Live with the Capital Jazz Society, back from the holidays, and they are bringing the University of Nebraska Omaha faculty jazz combo to Screamers Family Restaurant in Lincoln. The combo will be at Screamers from 7 to 9 p.m. this upcoming Monday, January 12th. As our first guest this morning, we've got here Executive Director for Capital Jazz Society with Arts Incorporated, Dean Heist. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So Dean, tell us about the ensemble that you're bringing in. I also hear there's some special guests as well.
There are. We've done this 2 or 3 times now, and the group is made up. Their core is the faculty of University of Nebraska at Omaha, but it changes a little bit. This is the largest group that they've ever brought down, I think. There are 9 musicians on the list they sent us, and UNO has an exchange program, I believe, with Latvia, and they have some students that are there from Latvia, and it's associated with their jazz program, and they're bringing a couple of them down to sit in, and last couple of times they've done that, and it's been very interesting because evidently there's a pretty good sized Latvian community here in Lincoln.
Yeah.
And they're close-knit, and they get the word out, and so there'll be a number of folks there to hear them.
Really cool. Yeah.
I'm Dave Hughes, and full disclosure, I'm on the Capital Jazz Society board because
good.
Dean asked me.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. And my son Liam Hughes plays bass trombone often with the Muddy Mill Big Band as well too. Dean, do you know what the repertoire will be?
No, I don't. It's straight ahead jazz, so standards, and there may be some originals written by members of the group. I really don't know.
Is there some Latvian style jazz? Do you know it at all? That we're not aware of?
I'm not certain. I think it's American style jazz that they appreciate there. That's what they'll be playing. But that's an excellent question. I'm ignorant.
So I noticed that some of these musicians are from a Latvian Music Academy, which is located in Riga, Latvia. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to actually meet or talk with any of those musicians?
No, and they change each year. So I don't know if they're here for a year or a semester. They come and study at UNO, and they've been looking ahead and trying to find a date that works so they can bring some of them to Lincoln.
That's pretty interesting. What a unique collaboration. Now, these Monday night jazz events you used to host at the Storm Cellar, but since that closed, mm-hmm. How's it been having them at Screamers?
We really like it. It's a nice facility. Kevin Wichter, the owner, has been very welcoming to us. They have a music theme. They're not normally open on Monday nights, so this isn't a conflict for anything that's already happening, like a sports bar, places we've been before. They have a great menu. People can come down early. It opens at 6 o'clock, and some folks are concerned about parking downtown in the Haymarket, but actually there's a parking garage just across the street, the corner of 9th and O, and it's the first hour is free, and if you purchase a food or drink at Screamers, they would validate the second hour, and then it's only $1.50, I think, per hour after that. So it's pretty reasonable and easy to get in and park right away and just walk across the street.
Cool.
Arts Incorporated and you were very busy in December. What do you guys have coming up later on this
Yeah,
month?
I'm trying to put December out of my mind.
Yeah, you had Nutcracker.
We had the Nutcracker,
Nebraska
and,
Brass Christmas stuff,
Messiah, and the Jazz
Messiah,
Orchestra,
Henderson.
and playing all around the state. But it's been a nice break for a little while, starting back up again Monday with this event, and then every Monday at Screamers we have another small group the next week, I think, the Lightning Bugs. That'll be fun.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Monday
Nice.
Night Big Band the last Monday of the month. The Nebraska Jazz Orchestra starts back up on the 20th, I think, of January, and we start rehearsals for Nebraska Brass the next night. We have some performances in some schools around Lincoln and Omaha for Nebraska Brass. I'm busy. I've already started working on, I have 7 Nebraska Arts Council grants that are due in March for the different nonprofit organizations we work for, and I do the majority of the work on those. So I've started with a spreadsheet, making a list of everything that I need to do, and trying to get ahead on that.
Busy, busy, busy. I want to briefly jump in and say, you mentioned Screamers has a music theme. We've got listeners across the state who may not have heard of Screamers. Do you want to just tell people a little bit about how that goes
Yeah,
there?
I have never been there before during that. But however, they do entertain us a little bit between 6 and 6:30 on Monday. The waitresses and servers sing, and they have a sound system, and they're quite good. So
It's one of the
interesting.
few places I've been to where I think you not only apply for a job to wait tables, but you have to audition.
Yeah.
Like that's that's a unique thing for
And
a
they've been there for
restaurant.
quite a while. They got a good following.
Yeah, very good. And you're playing a lot yet this season, yes?
Yeah, I play with this group on Monday nights whenever the big band is playing. So I keep plenty busy. I'm not going to complain.
All right. Dave, anything else from you?
No, I think I've heard quite enough and look forward to going to Screamers next time my
I don't know
son
how you wanna take
plays.
that.
Now that you're
Dean.
retired, you have time to get out.
That's right. Go enjoy some live music. Well, it's the University of Nebraska Omaha Faculty Jazz Combo, and they've got special guests. Some of those guests are musicians like Tom Rudzinskis, I'm going to say.
I'm glad you tried that,
saxophone.
so.
I'm going to try it. I'm also going to try Domjankas Visniauskas playing trumpet. That is members from the Joseps Vitols Latvian Music Academy in Riga, Latvia, joining in there at Screamers Family Restaurant located in Lincoln's Haymarket, where we are broadcasting from today. That performance is coming up Monday, January 12th from 7 to 9 p.m. And you can find more details, as always, and all the information you need on future shows on the Friday Live page by linking through on nebraskapublicmedia.org. Dean, I really appreciate you. I know how musicians love to get up early, and when I say love, I'm making air quotes. Thank you for being here this morning on
Happy
Friday
New Year.
Live.
Thank you for promoting music so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to Friday Live, coming to you from the Mill Coffee and Tea in downtown Lincoln. Attention anime fans in Nebraska. We have an event to further your convention arc. Nebraska Anime Fest is this weekend in Lincoln, and it features fun for anime lovers, families of anime lovers, all of the above. There will be local artists, lip sync and cosplay contests, and a meet and greet with iconic voice actors Chuck Huber and Peter Calamus. Show manager Carmine DeSanto joins us today to talk about all of the fun. Carmine, welcome to Friday Live.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and we're excited for this weekend.
So for those who know voices better than names, who are Chuck Huber and Peter Calamus?
Yeah, these are two big Dragon Ball gods. So if you watch Dragon Ball Z, you will know these two voice actors like the back of your hands. One of them's Android 17, which everyone fell in love with, which is a villain. And then Peter Calamus is actually the voice of Goku, which is the main character of Dragon Ball. So you got two characters that people are going to line up, get their toys, get their anything signed, posters. These guys they love their fans, and they love coming out to these shows. And I got a great relationship, so I'm a little bit spoiled to bring these two guys out to Lincoln.
Very nice. Well, is there a big turnout for local artists that I mentioned?
Yeah, so we have a huge local manga section of all local artists. So it's 100% all locals from Omaha and Lincoln, all coming. Now we also have some surrounding cities, local artists coming as well. But we do showcase the local artists in our artist alley, and they do focus on their manga artwork, which is very popular at these shows.
Now, for the lip sync battles, do people pick what song to do? How does that work?
Yeah, it's huge right now, especially in anime. And now there's like a lot of crossover with K-pop. So we got K-pop, we got anime, and people just love to say anything to do with the Demon Hunters and this K-pop. It's another world.
So this event then features cosplay contests, and obviously events like this see a lot of cosplay in general. People love to show up in the costumes. Though all the events that you've done, what's the most impressive cosplay you've ever seen, and why was it that impressive?
I think the best I've seen was a gentleman came dressed up as Android 16, which is this bulk character, looks like Halo. And the way this guy did it, I think he said it took him like 6 months to build this costume. And these guys are very serious when it comes to their costume and cosplay. So they'll spend a lot of time, devoted hours to make sure it's a perfection costume that comes out. So it blows me away. I've seen even like Bumblebee Transformers and transform from a car to a human. Like it blows me away what these guys can do.
It's amazing to me to see someone whose costume can transform like that and look like something accurately, but then also be comfortable enough to walk around in.
Yeah, and the way they play, like I was telling you about the Android 61, the guy had like a built-in fan to keep him cool inside.
That is amazing. I got to admit, Carmine, if you'll humor me, I really have virtually no anime knowledge. I have relied on research from others on my team for this interview. Can we get an example or a sample of the anime trivia that attendees can expect?
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool, wicked trivia that we do. You do it from your phone. You scan the QR code on our screen, and it's trivia questions. I think do like 50 of them, and it's all anime from old to new, and it's just questions. And then we have prizes for the top 3 at the end.
And this is your first time in Nebraska, I understand.
Yeah, we're excited. We've done a lot of shows in the East, and a lot of our vendors that are coming those shows to the East are coming from like Nebraska and like from Kansas, and like, Carm, you got to bring the show to the West. So this is our first, and we're excited.
Well, I've been talking here with Carmine DeSanto. Nebraska Anime Fest is tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Country Inn and Suites by the Radisson Hotel in Lincoln. There are vendors, as we've mentioned, local artists, trivia, a lip sync and cosplay contest, as well as guests, Chuck Huber and Peter Kelamis. Children under 11 get in for free, and for more information surrounding all kinds of individual activities and times and all of those details, you can find a link, as usual, at our website, nebraskapublicmedia.org. Carmine, such a pleasure to meet you and talk with you. Thanks for talking with us today.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me.
I'm Genevieve Randall.
And I'm Dave Hughes. Thanks for listening to Friday Live on Nebraska Public Media. Stay right here to meet an artist with a unique approach to painting, and in about 8 minutes, we'll hear this week's poetry segment.
Europe on the brink of war, a prime minister careless with secret documents thanks to a much younger mistress. On this week's All About Books, Pat Leach looks at the appropriately named new novel from Robert Harris.
Precipice certainly is an apt title. It reflects both the historical period and the personal lives within it. There is much to discuss here. How do men and women relate to each other? How do we find ourselves? What difference does social class make?
Check out the podcast with a review of the historical fiction thriller Precipice by Robert Harris. It's online now at nebraskapublicmedia.org/allaboutbooks.
Support for programming comes from Cornerstone Bank, a family-owned bank providing custom investments, trusts, and estate planning services since 1882 with 48 Nebraska locations. To learn more, cornerstoneconnect.com. Cornerstone Bank, building trust on a solid foundation. And Constellation Studios, mixed-use artists' workspace for all types of printmaking and paper projects, featuring printing presses, bookmaking, type shop, and wet paper studio. For info, constellation-studios.net.
I'm Genevieve Randall. You are listening to Friday Live.
I'm Dave Hughes, co-hosting and barely able to talk this morning on Friday Live.
No problem, no problem. Dave co-hosting here. This is his last Friday Live show as he retires. And the two of us are joined next here by Alex Renbarger. She is one of two artists with exhibitions currently at the Lux Center for the Arts in Lincoln, titled What Remains When Memory Fades. The work features selected paintings merging traditional techniques with AI-generated images, which we'll talk about. And we're joined by Andy Peterson, Director of Operations and Programming there at the Lux.
The other artist is Jaden Estes Carlson. Her hand-built ceramic pieces are in Where Pattern Rests on display in the West Gallery. Both exhibitions are up through February 27th. There is reception tonight from 5 to 8 p.m. And
yeah,
I guess
welcome to Friday Live.
Welcome again.
Welcome again. Well, Alex, let's start with you. Your work is in the East Gallery. What remains when memory fades? That is such an intriguing question to ask as the title of your exhibition. How do you create something about something you can't remember? I mean, that's a little, how did you arrive at the title?
So the title is all about what each painting is trying to answer. So every painting addresses that in some way. For example, one is reminiscent of like the floral patterns of old couches for like thinking about memories. But in this painting, that floral pattern has taken over the whole painting. So it's not just on the couch, it's like over top, it's like in the wallpapers. So it's thinking about how you remember things. Or another painting, everything has gotten really bright. The colors are really saturated because that's how you remember things. Things get brighter. The things you care less about don't take as much attention. So a lot of it's like painterly and like blurry.
I have to ask, is there a specific floral couch for you?
No, that's one of the coolest things about using AI-generated images is that a lot of the times when I make them, it's like a feeling that I get instead of something very specific, which I think is why other people also see it as like the past for them. It like makes it a little more universal.
I am wondering about some of the layering of the personal in this, though, because in your artist statement, you reference experiences of trauma, emotions, dreams, along with memory, but also you're layering in techniques. So I'm wondering how you use the generative AI in this way in tandem with traditional oil painting and how that ties to the emotional part of this.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the best ways to be able to connect to a larger audience, but still be true to myself. So with the AI, I generate a lot of different images and then I collage them together until I make like a digital reference image. And then I print that and I use that to paint from. So I'm studying that image and every single part of it when I'm painting it and getting to know it. So a lot of the times in the image, I'm not sure what it is. But after a lot of staring, I'm like, oh, I see why this blur could be like blanket. Or there's one painting in the show with a teddy bear in it on a couch. And in the original image, that's just AI static. Like it's just squiggly goop. And then eventually I was like, I bet you that's some sort of pillow or a blanket or like that's what AI was trying to do. So I turned it into a teddy bear.
Wow, that's an interesting process for sure.
Andy, since Jaden Estes Carlson isn't here, could you give us some insight on her work, Where Pattern Rests? Have you seen her ceramic pieces or worked with her before?
I have not worked with her before, but I've had the pleasure of seeing the show that's up currently, that's going to be opening tonight, and it is phenomenal. There's such an interesting layering going on there as well between the actual surfaces of the pieces, and then she plays so much with the texture. She's very inspired by quilted textures and these patterns, and she talks about these rigid patterns and how the tension is between the fabric, how fabric can move and how the textures that are very regimented move over these surfaces. It's a very nuanced show. There's so much going on. And she even has some visual setup with how pieces interact with each other in the space, which is really wonderful to see in person.
Her artist statement describes her perspective on those patterns. She includes patterns of society, rigid structures and gender norms, also patterns of the day, home and work. What is it like to have her art on display in proximity to another artist's work? Do you think that affects how viewers experience the work?
I mean, we're always hoping to have an interesting dialogue going on between the galleries during any of these shows. Sometimes it's really direct, sometimes it's these kind of surprising serendipitous things that come up that tell a story that we didn't even know we were telling. So, hearing things about layering and textures showing up in both galleries is just a great way for someone to come in
And working with your artists at the Lux and figuring out who's going to be in what gallery when.
We have the most amazing exhibitions team. We have 3 people that work with local artists and regional artists, put out calls for art. But it's way more than that. They really look at what the submissions come in. They try to look at the artist and the artist's work as a whole and find interesting stories to tell. So it's really not just pitch us a exhibit. It's really pitch us a story, pitch us who you are as an artist. And then we try to bring out stories and artists that we think will really be compelling for the Lincoln community and for where we're at right now. And they can really add to the conversation.
Cool. Alex, how did you first get involved with the Lux?
I always loved the Lux from afar, but it was always just a little bit out of my original circle. But what they do is they have workshops where you can go and learn something that's really cool. And it's a smaller chunk of time. They're usually 2 or 3 hours. So it was really approachable. So I eventually saw one. I don't even remember which one my first one. Madison Svengard is an incredible artist. And she had a workshop that was multimedia art, so you're using more than one, and I was I have to go, even though I'm scared of new places. So I went, and it was amazing, and I haven't stopped going.
I love that you mentioned scared of new places. I often talk to visual artists about the fact how you're often working, you're in your studio, you're by yourself. Are you going to be at the reception?
Yes,
tonight?
Oh, definitely.
What is that like for you to interact then with the public, seeing your work and getting to ask you questions?
Oh, it's so fun. I love talking about art. I love talking about color and light and AI. And so every time I have a show that's about my work, I'm always just happy to sit there and talk with everybody. And everyone has such different opinions and backgrounds that I love seeing how other people see it. Yeah. And I always ask people, which one's your favorite painting? Because it's always different. And so it's a cool way to see people.
Will Jaden be at the reception as well, too?
I believe Jaden will be there at the reception, which is very exciting. We always try to get the artists in whenever possible.
How did you determine to do a second Friday? My wife and I went to some First Friday openings last week, and did you decide that the 2nd of January was too early to do an opening?
The Lux, we try to treat ourselves kindly, and over the winter break, we didn't want to rush back and try to squeeze in a First Friday, so we decided to move this one back a week. We do that every once in a while when we think more people might be back in the swing of things and ready to go out and have fun and not so quick after the new year.
Well, I think that's a great idea to do a second Friday. I know there's some galleries that do a third Friday.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
In downtown Lincoln. So great. I mean,
you just
that
fill
means
your whole month with
the 2nd, 9th, and 16th, there'll be art openings in Lincoln.
Keep it going. Yeah.
I want to touch on AI once again, because I do think it's a huge part of discussions just generally. What is everyone seeing that's AI? Where is it coming from? And a lot of artists, I think, they've had their work scraped and borrowed. What is your perspective on the use of generative AI as an artist?
Oh, absolutely. People are doing terrible things with AI all the time. AI has its place, and it can be a tool, and it can do really cool things. But that's not how most people are using it, unfortunately. So one of the things I try to do is always be as ethical as possible. For example, I gave an hour and a half long talk recently about the ethics behind AI and proposing guidelines of how we can use generative AI images ethically. One is by making sure to use more images and put them together, and being very transparent about where your images are from, how you're getting it. So I don't just type in a prompt and then have a picture and say, this is my art. But no matter what level of AI is in each image, I try to be really clear. Every single painting I sell comes with a little birth certificate that has the prompt used, or if there's more than one prompt, there's pictures, all the fun details that I can add so that people know what is happening.
I wonder if you could expand for me a little bit on the ethics of that. I mean, how can other artists maybe use AI? What would be your advice to someone on how to be ethical about it?
I would say use it, incorporate it into your art. Don't have it just be your art. So what I do is I make collages, so I'm using more than one image, and then I translate it entirely into painting. But you don't have to make everything painting. So you can incorporate AI images with your own images, or you can have a very specific goal in mind. So when you're typing in, you're trying to find this type of couch for this scene. Everything's all about intention. Yeah. When you're making art, be intentional with it and have your own goal so that when you're making it, it feels like you. And if you're not, like, there's nothing wrong with typing a cat eating a pizza. You just don't say, hey, I made this cat eating a pizza.
Yeah, right.
You
right,
say,
right.
I typed in a prompt and I got a funny picture, or like send it as a GIF.
Cat eating a pizza is so perfect. I don't know why. It's either that or baby goat doing something. I don't know. Andy, do you have any follow up on that? The use of AI in art?
Not specifically, but I will say one of the things that we've really enjoyed at the Lux Center in general, we offer a lot of classes, and we really find a lot of joy in the hands-on art making and the hands-on ceramics and the feeling of pushing oil around on a canvas that you just can't replicate. And that's always been a huge part of where our heart and soul is. And it's very grounding and therapeutic in today's day and age. And I think a lot of that is maybe a reaction to AI in the digital world. So we'll keep embracing that.
Very cool.
Andy, since this stays up through February 27th, is there a closing reception?
We don't do a closing reception. We usually do a first Friday to kind of launch new things. And we will have a second, version for people to come and do an open house for shows that are staying up. One of the things I did want to mention, Alex is not going anywhere. We're thrilled to invite her. She just joined us as one of our artists in residence. So even though her exhibition will only be up for a bit, she will be with us for the long haul and adding to our family for the rest of the summer.
Congratulations. Yeah. And so your next exhibition will be up for First Friday opening in March then?
Yeah, well, we have 4 galleries, and so on any given First Friday, we're trying to change out a couple of them. This one is actually, we have 3 of our galleries have brand new shows, including our historical print gallery, and then the next one will have a new gallery, a new exhibition in our community gallery, and so there's always something new. I don't have the full schedule in front of me, but we try to keep it fresh.
Well, we hope you keep in touch with us here. Andy Peterson is Lux Director of Operations and Programming. Alex Renbarger is an artist who has work in the collection, What Remains When Memory Fades. And that is on display at the Lux Center for the Arts in Lincoln through February 27th.
And you can see the art and the artist at the Lux. There's an opening reception from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. tonight. Alex and Andy, thanks for spending some time with us on the show this morning.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This is Fry Live on Nebraska Public Media. We're coming to you from the Mill Coffee and Tea in Lincoln's historic Haymarket.
My name is Greg Kosmiski, and I'm going to read a few of my poems from early publications. First poem I'll read is My Flag from When There Wasn't Any War. My flag. It is after dinner, and I go to shake the crumbs from the tablecloth. They fall down onto the porch steps for the crickets and the mice and ants. We live in a great country. There is enough for all. The tablecloth unfurls lightly on the held breath of the still fall night air, and it seems to me to be like a flag with the blue stripe all around the border and the blue stripe enclosing the field at center, a field which encloses some flowers but could not hold in even all the flowers, since some of them have escaped and drifted, as on water or a breeze, toward the bright blue border. The flag of the friendly country, where even the vermin have enough to eat. And I'm waving it from my porch for you. I want you to come and join me and my family. I want you to sit at my table and have bread and lasagna with us so we can talk about the war and the taxes. I want you to help me shake crumbs on the porch. I want to wash it and iron it and fold it safely, to place it gently and with respect in the drawer for our next dinner, when we will not have marched under any other flag. For I know you could not be a traitor to me. We will all be so insanely happy we had not yet had to die for any cause. I want you to spill your wine. I want you to get breadcrumbs on my flag. Next poem I'm going to read is from a collection entitled How Things Happen. The man who always followed instructions. When the other guys got all the jobs, they told him to eat his heart out, so he did. It was slick and tough, like eating greased polyvinyl chloride, but he always did what he was told, always. And when his woman friend told him to take a long walk off a short pier, he did and nearly drowned, but for the alert actions of a teenager whom he thanked profusely, who told him to think nothing of it, so he didn't. And he so completely forgot about his fall off the pier that when he walked into a dress shop dripping wet with a fish in his pocket, the people screamed and told him he looked like hell. He said, "Okay, so I am hell." And inside of him, it was very hot. If you listen closely, you can hear a type of screaming when he speaks. Forgiveness. All of us have forgiven each other for the past. We have been forgiven. There's nothing more to cry about. The first night, I wanted to lift weights until I collapsed or died. Death was so absurd at 3 o'clock in the morning. We have all been forgiven. We have forgiven ourselves. It is not our fault anymore. We can see that now. But none of us can seem to get our lives together quite. Not exactly. It seems there is always something wrong, something slight maybe. We have all forgiven each other. We have forgiven ourselves. We have been forgiven. And Dad says it's not natural. After all these years, she still cannot talk about him without crying. I've forgiven myself for not thinking about him ever lately. I grew tired of picking the same old scab in poems. I forgave him for dying. We named our son after him. I forgave myself for the way I acted 10 years. I think my parents finally forgave me, that I wasn't him. Everyone and everything is forgiven. Over the whole earth walks the family of the wounded, saying, "I am sorry, thank you, you are forgiven." I don't understand how anything gets done. I forgive you. How odd and easy it is. Look, I hereby forgive the world. I gave it one of my only brothers. These are poems coming up from Nobody Lives Here Who Saw This Sky. Daffodils. How he, so eager to clamber the stone fence by the shed back into our yard, where 9 forlorn daffodils have grown gracefully from a dead woman's flower bed through 7 inches of last fall's fill dirt, to blossom this spring in my landscaping. Picks one daffodil too close to the bloom for her to treat it as anything but a rose, float it in her crystal bowl in water. How she, homely old lady with the goiter, whom he expects at any moment to transmogrify, married to her sister and mother, accepts the blossom from this slip of a boy, graciously as though it's her first bouquet, who tends in her garden enough flowers for him to pick in his child's clumsy way his whole lifetime of neighbors and lovers.
Greg Comiskey read My Flag from When There Wasn't Any War, The Man Who Always Followed Instructions, Forgiveness, and Daffodils. Kosmiski is a poet and retired social worker who lives in Omaha, Nebraska. He founded the Backwaters Press in 1997, which he now serves as editor emeritus.
I'm Genevieve Randall. Greg is also reading tonight at the Lion. That's on the west side of St. Mark's on the campus, 1309 R Street in Lincoln. You can head to that at 6 p.m. Stay with Friday Live here this morning to discover personal pieces on a concert in Omaha being played amid artwork. And in just 2 minutes, I'll discuss art and history in Scotts Bluff with the director of the West Nebraska Arts Center.
This week on the Friday Live Extra, a chance to see a different kind of work from an artist who has been in Omaha for decades. June Kaneko is known for his sculptures. What does this work look like in 2 dimensions? Why is it artists might try different mediums or methods? And why do we create anyway?
Creativity can be anything. You know, it's not just what people typically think of as like painting or drawing or ceramics. You know, it's everything. It's business, it's science, it's music, it's dance, it's everything. Everything you do, I think, becomes richer if you are creative.
Learn more about June Kaneko's 2-dimensional art in this week's Friday Live Extra. Head to our website, nebraskapublicmedia.org/Friday Live. Support for programming comes from Great Plains Piano Company, offering sales of both new and pre-owned pianos, including Mason and Hamlin, Steinway, Yamaha, and Petroff. Online at greatplainspiano.com. I'm Dave Hughes. This is Friday Live.
With the new year comes new art exhibits all across Nebraska, of course. And at West Nebraska Art Center in Scottsbluff, they are starting the year off with 2 new exhibitions. One that showcases the work of local rug hookers, and another that features stories of both people local to Scottsbluff as well as the stories of Black leaders from around the world. I am joined here by Executive Director for West Nebraska Art Center, Michelle Denton. Michelle, always great to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for waiting on me today. I was a little slow.
No problem. No problem. Well, let's begin with the rugs. I think of rug cooking as kind of a hobby that a lot of people had a moment with, a few decades back. But for people who've never done it, what is it?
Well, it kind of is like this. Like when we did it as youngsters, or I did it in school, there was latch hooking, where you had the little pieces of yarn and then you did that. And then there was a punch needle where you had like a burlap and you punched in. This is similar to the burlap and the latch kind of together. The little tool is a little thing with the hook and a little clasper on there, and it goes through the burlap. But they use 100% wool. And they use recycled wool, like if you're, had wool skirts or buy them at, like thrift stores, or wool jackets, or you can just buy wool, of course, but 100%. And then they run it through a little thing that looks like a spaghetti or noodle maker, that cuts. And so it cuts it in very specific shapes. And then they use those to create the art. And they can dye the wool. Wool takes readily to dye, and so they dye it in all the different hues that they want. And this is to a high art. This isn't grandma's craft anymore. This is special. It's really wonderful.
Really cool. Well, so locally made from folks right there around Scottsbluff. Tell me about the rugs that you're featuring. What will we see?
So we've got some that are like story rugs that tell a life's history. And then like weddings and births and cattle and ducks and chickens and what your house looks like. And so it's a whole story about somebody's life. And then we have another one that a woman created for her grandson when he graduated, with him fly fishing. And so she's also incorporated actual tied flies that he's made and added those into it. And it's just pretty awesome. There's some that are specific to like holidays, Christmas ones and Easter. And then some that harken back to the vintage design. So it's just a little bit about everything, and every kind of skill level. Beginners, and there are a couple, 2 or 3 of them that are exquisite rug hookers.
This is amazing. It reminds me kind of memory quilts, when people would do quilting and incorporate family members' clothes into it or something. How big are these rugs?
Well, the one I was talking about, she had done it for a wedding, and it's probably 3 foot by at least maybe 3 by 6, or 4 by 6 would probably be more of a typical size. But a lot of them, they're actually rugs. So they were meant to be on the floor in the olden days. But trust me, you don't want to put these on. You don't want somebody walking on their boots on these. Nope. But yeah, that's really cool. It tells a whole story. Those story quilts are awesome.
Well, there's another exhibition I mentioned here that's at the museum, and it is also story-based. You actually participated in this, gathering some familiar stories from folks with different backgrounds. The Germans from Russia, which I know there's a museum in Lincoln on this end of the state, so lots of folks across the state, Irish descendants. What were some of the stories that you came across? What's a tidbit you could share?
So how it came about was we were going to have a Black History show for January and February. And there was miscommunication with the artist, and he'd already booked somewhere else for January. So we had to, like in a week's time, because we were waiting on his stuff, come up with something to fill the gallery. But it turned out awesome. So I just thought, well, we'll just feature other cultures and people that I know around here that might be able to contribute. And we have a great legacy of the Plains Museum in Gering. And so they were very helpful with me a couple days ago, gave me some information. And luckily, my family is half half of them were Irish and half were German. And we had really good people that kept good history and pictures on both sides. So I thought that's why we went to the German and the Irish, because I didn't have to go far but my own garage. So I have a few of my ancestors hanging on the walls down there today. But I do have a lot of open space. So if local people want to look and they want to contribute and bring their own family history, that's awesome. It's more generated about the pioneers that came here, why they came here, and then the work they did in the beet fields and beans and corn and cattle. Yeah.
Yeah, the sugar beet fields, a lot of that is to do with some of the Japanese settlers as well.
Yes, Japanese too.
Yeah.
So I think next year maybe we feature Hispanic and Japanese or, Native American. So I think this was a good kind of a blurb that turned into something good so we can celebrate all cultures.
I love that. That's just like when an artist drips paint and then they turn it into something else, right?
Oh, I know. Exactly. It's wonderful.
Well, and alongside that, Michelle, within the Bronson Gallery, you've got a collection that also focuses on Black leaders from around the world. So we've got a kind of a local history and a global history side by side. Can you give me a few more details about that and how that's curated?
So Herb Thompson, our original artist that was going to show for the 2 months, he will be bringing stuff and it'll open we will take our part of it down and put Herb's stuff up there. But I think he has 13 photographs of Black leaders from around the world with origins or some kind of a tie to Nebraska. So I'm looking forward to seeing his great photography and his stories. That'll be really fun.
So before
give people a chance to come back.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before I let you go, Michelle, you mentioned your own history. How do we see your history in the gallery?
You can. I've got it all on the walls. One of the great pictures we have was from a photographer in the late 1800s called Solomon Butcher, very famous photographer, and he photographed my family's Irish homestead. So I've got that, and then a story about Solomon Butcher and what he did, and he chronicled amazing history for the state of Nebraska. So I'm very honored and very blessed that my family of Fairders from around Broken Bow has their picture. So I had to purchase one because they own the Solomon Butcher plate, but I have my own photograph. So yeah, then you can work around that.
That is a pretty neat connection to history.
It is cool.
Well, my guest here is Michelle Denton. She is Executive Director at the West Nebraska Art Center in Scotts Bluff. Michelle, like I said, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for chatting with me about everything you've got going on.
Thanks, Genevieve.
And for listeners, you can see the Hole in the Wall Rug Hookers exhibition and the exhibit on German Russians, and Irish descendants, all in the Scotts Bluff area there. That's up through January 24th. And as always, everyone can link through to more details on the Friday Live page of our website, nebraskapublicmedia.org. Symphony will be ushering in their first concert of 2026 by playing at the beautiful Joslyn Museum in Omaha. Guest conductor Earl Lee from the Ann Arbor Symphony will lead Beethoven's First Symphony, and there's more music by Wagner and Stravinsky on the program as well. The performance is coming up this Sunday, 2 p.m., although there are activities ahead of the concert, and I'm joined here by Daniel Meyer, the Vice President of Artistic Administration for the Omaha Symphony. Danny, so nice to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I read that there is some programming before the actual concert here, which I mentioned. What can people expect from that?
So this weekend's a tiny bit different because traditionally our assistant conductor, Serena Royden, and I will give a pre-concert talk in the Abbott Lecture Hall in the Joslyn at 1:15. And that will still be happening, but it's pre-recorded this weekend because we will both be out of town. So the video versions of us will be giving a pre-concert talk, which I hope people will come to because, one, we had a ton of fun doing it, but two, it's the chance to get a little bit more just behind the scenes fun facts about the music before you dive into the listening portion. But But also the Jocelyn hosts art walks and tours in the space. You can find those on the Jocelyn's website so that people can get a guided sense of the galleries. And also, what a cool collaboration between the Jocelyn and the symphony, that we talk about our programming and what elements might fit and work well with each other. The staff at the Jocelyn are so smart, and they come up with the coolest connections between our programs and what they have on site in the museum. And so these pieces that you never in a million years thought you would connect, like a car crash amalgamation sculpture, for example, with the November program we did, which featured coincidentally a car crash as one of the elements of the trombone concerto. But they come up with such cool ideas and combinations. So if you come early, you can check out the space on your own. You can do a guided tour. You can listen to Serena and my pre-recorded holographic voices. Check, check, check. What a great afternoon.
Do you find that you connect with a theme in a different way when you're looking at it visually like that, as opposed to playing it? I mean, you yourself are a musician, so.
Yes, and I really love getting to see these ideas and themes through other people's eyes. And so I sit down with Jocelyn staff every year to talk about our upcoming programs, and then they take that information back to their docents who draw things out. And so one of my favorite things is seeing the work maybe for the first time before that pre-concert talk and getting that surprise of, oh my gosh, what have they picked? This is like, it's kind of like, as you said, it's like getting the veil taken off or the blindfold, and you suddenly see a brand new dimension of 4D element to this concert you didn't anticipate.
Well, so let's talk about the repertoire then. Why have these three pieces been chosen? Beethoven's First Symphony, the Wagner Siegfried Idyll, a very personal piece of Wagner, and then Stravinsky's Dumbarton Oaks, an interesting work.
This is a lighthearted, joyful, from the heart ode to the start of the new year for us. We're in a music director search. We've asked all of our conductors to come in and just kind of put their heart on a sleeve for our audiences to see who they really are. And so Maestro Lee, I think he wanted to kind of bring these like heartfelt calling cards. So you have, as you said, Wagner's gift to his wife Cosima. Originally played the premiere, like 13 musicians scattered on the stairs of inside their home. Like she woke up to it. He had to publish it, and I think she always was sad that it got shared. But the rest of us reaped the benefit because it's a truly gorgeous 18-minute piece of music. Then you have Stravinsky's, commissioned for a wedding anniversary, so again from the heart, but designed to fit in a salon. So not unlike some of the rooms in the Jocelyn where you have this intimate space and yet the really high impact of the art that surrounds you, right? And so it's this tiny ensemble. Every single person is extraordinarily important, has to walk this tightrope. Stravinsky's the master, the genius of the 20th century. So of course he's the one who's managing the traffic here. But it's a group full of soloists. And then you have Beethoven, who was the shadow behind everyone else's back, right? When they were writing their symphonies. But the man had to write his own first symphony at some point too, which he comes out of the gate with the most fun, the most active, the most thumbing his nose at, especially the fourth movement. If you've never heard Beethoven 1 and you hear the start of this fourth movement, it's this buildup of a scale, note by note by note, and it's such a tease. What a petty little tease Beethoven is being. And when he finally launches into the true energy of each movement, you just think, oh, he's been waiting a long time to see what he can do with the sports car that is, a 19th century, like late 18th century symphony orchestra.
So I have a question for you, Danny, that's kind of specific to you as you're talking about this music. You are a double bassist. This is a part of the orchestra, you're behind all those other musicians off to one side, depending on how Omaha organizes things, but usually I see you off to the right side as an audience member. What role does the double bass play in some of these pieces? What can audience listen for?
It changes by the composer. I think regardless, above all else, we are the support and the foundation. Always, always, always. So a lot of orchestras will listen from the ground up. That's how we tune. That's how we make sure everything's intact. So as a bassist, you don't want to be the reason why things are dragging behind. You want to propel forward. You don't want to be adding any sort of like extra. It's kind of like doing a U-turn with a yacht, right? You don't want to be the reason why the yacht has to do the U-turn. And so I love that these composers, especially Stravinsky and Beethoven, they ask the bass players to be as equally athletic, as equally exuberant, as equally light on our feet as any other instrument in the orchestra. And the joy is taking this instrument that maybe when you see it, you're like, well, that looks like moving a couch, as Garrison Keillor, I think, famously said. And it is, but that couch can move really, really fast. So if you give it the chance, it's a joy the joy is in the attempt.
I love that so much. Let's talk just a little bit about performance space here as well, because you're performing in a very different space at the Joslyn as an orchestra rather than someplace like the Holland, designed for acoustic, performances like this. Can you talk about performing in those two spaces?
I absolutely love performing in the Witherspoon. I think it is very different. The Holland, I found out recently that the architecture is reminiscent of the plains of Nebraska. So that's why you have the really lovely bright wood. You have the huge amounts of natural light. It's acoustically designed for us. And so the moment you walk in there and you start playing, you could feel the hall just kind of like embrace you and amplify your sound. It's a wondrous place to play. I do love the Witherspoon, though. It provides an intimacy and a feeling of almost like this meditative state where you walk in and you sit down. It's darker. It's a definitely Art Deco style, the plush seats and everything. But there's a feeling of like when you're walking in to see your favorite movie in the theater, if you remember that seminal experience in your life, like going in, there's a feeling of anticipation that comes with being in an environment like that. And if you play the right repertoire in that space, it can really, really shine. So you want to give the orchestra its best chance to really put its best foot forward. And the repertoire we choose is often exciting and adventurous. It leans more classical when we go for more traditional works because you don't want to try and do like the big, heavy romantic works in there. But you do want to celebrate your early Beethovens and your light Stravinskys and your intimate Wagners in those moments.
Well, you can hear the Omaha Symphony doing just that. Start your new year with Beethoven, Wagner, and Stravinsky at the Joslyn Art Museum in Witherspoon Hall. That concert is coming up this Sunday. That is the 11th at 2 p.m. Insights from symphony staff, including my guest here, Danny, as she said, that will be available in the pre-concert chat. You can start your day with a tour as well at Joslyn if you want. There's events ahead at 1:15 p.m. And if you forget all those details, because there's a lot, you can find more details on the Friday Live page at nebraskapublicmedia.org. My guest is Vice President of Artistic Administration and a double bassist for the Omaha Symphony, Daniel Meyer. Danny, thank you so much. A pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me, Genevieve. I really appreciate it.
I'm Genevieve Randall. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Dave Hughes. In Omaha, Kaneko is gearing up for another year bringing art to the community. KVNO's Abigail Gosek has more on what you can expect in 2026.
With the new year in full swing, the thrill of possibility brings with it an air of excitement to Omaha. For the flourishing local arts community, a new wave of creativity has just begun. Kaneko Gallery is gearing up for another year of exhibitions and events. Kimberly Faith Hickman, Kaneko Gallery Artistic Programs and Events Director, is excited about the current season.
So we've got a lot of really fun, I think, unique opportunities for people to come and have a good time, have a glass of wine if they want, bring their friends, but have a great experience.
Kaneko Gallery's current season includes the exhibitions Under the Skin and June Kaneko Paintings and Prints. The Under the Skin exhibition features artwork that explores the human body from the Karen and Robert Duncan and Catherine and Mark LeBaron collections. The June Kaneko Paintings and Prints exhibition features artwork from June Kaneko's personal collection. Both exhibitions are available now for the public to view through March 22nd. Jason Hovey, Kaneko Gallery Exhibition and Special Projects Director, says that each new exhibition and event brings a fresh atmosphere to the gallery.
It's wonderful to have in our space. It's a blessing to get to be here every day. I love walking in and seeing it. And I hope we get a lot of people coming in and leaving inspired.
2 events inspired by each exhibition, Everybody Has a Story, A Night with Nebraska Writers Collective, and Making a Mark, The Art of the Press with Howard Payne, will accompany the arts. Inspired by the June Kaneko Paintings and Prints exhibition, the Making a Mark, The Art of the Press with Howard Payne event dives into both the history and process of printmaking on January 26th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Howard Payne, University of Nebraska-Omaha professor and artist, will lead the interactive event through a lecture on the artistry of printmaking and perform live demonstrations. Guests of the event will be able to handle tools and pull a print of their own with Payne's guidance. Similarly inspired by the Under the Skin exhibition, Kaneko Gallery's collaboration with Nebraska Writers Collective will include a night of live readings of original pieces on January 16th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Everybody Has a Story, a night with Nebraska Writers Collective, will feature Nebraska writer Sam Lee alongside the members of the collective.
There are going to be some readings that are inspired by what's in the exhibition, what it means to be human from each individual writer's perspective. We are also going to be doing some conversations around nudes and religion iconography and what that looks like in the art history. And then also there are some pieces in the show that have to do with reconstructive surgery. And so there's just a lot of opportunity for us to have really important conversations.
Kaneko Gallery will be hosting the Nebraska Writers Collective once again in March for Student Workshop.
And we also are going to be having a big Valentine's Day event here that will feature wine and chocolate and the local performance group Broadway Bar.
For Friday Live, I'm Abigail Gosek.
Coming up this morning on Nebraska Public Media, music from Nebraska stages on Nebraska Concerts, hosted by Laura Black.
And this afternoon, Penelope Morrow celebrates the weekend and brings you classics by request.
Be sure to visit the Nebraska Public Media website for podcasts of our show at nebraskapublicmedia.org.
Portions of Friday Live are pre-recorded.
Our theme music was written and performed by Alexios Anist. Friday Live is not possible without the collaboration of Brendan Rook, Phoenix Carroll, Cole McEwen, KVNO's Gabrielle Escalera, and associate producer Arthur Jones. Dave Hughes has retired. After how many years of service, Dave?
38 1/4, but I still seem to be working 4 days in a row here. What's the deal?
I know. Well, we're thankful for you sticking around here. Don't worry, he'll still be hearing him on the airwaves occasionally. Thanks for co-hosting one last Friday Live. For you, that is, Dave.
You're welcome.
I'm Genevieve Randall.